ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. O Ramakrishna, the establisher of the eternal religion, the embodiment of all religions, and the best of all incarnations, we salute thee. In the last reading class, we were at page 380, para 5. Today, we shall continue our reading from there. When he, that means Sri Ramakrishna, reached Kashi, Mathur Babu hired 2 houses side by side on the Kedar Ghat. We know that Sri Ramakrishna and his attendant were stranded somewhere on the way to Kashi when they got down from the train, and they were divinely rescued by some big officer of the railways who was coming in a special saloon. He took them into his saloon and reached them to Kashi. So after that incident is this description. When Sri Ramakrishna reached Kashi, Mathur Babu hired 2 houses side by side on the Kedar Ghat. Kedar Ghat is a locality in Kashi, Banaras. He behaved there like a prince in all respects. Whenever he went out, a silver umbrella was held over his head, and servants would carry silver maces and other paraphernalia before and after him. Mathur Babu, in a regal style, he was moving about in Varanasi. While he was staying there, Sri Ramakrishna went in a palanquin to pay his obeisance to Vishwanath, the principal deity of Kashi, almost every day. Hriday accompanied him on foot. Even on the way to the temple, the master used to pass into ecstasy, not to speak of the time when he saw the deity. Though he entered into ecstasy in all the temples, he especially experienced it in the temple of Kedarnath, the master and the Trailanga Swami. Besides visiting the temples, the master went to see the eminent holy men of Kashi. Hriday always accompanied him. The master paid a few visits to the famous Trailanga Swami, one of the foremost of Paramahamsas. The Swami was then observing the vow of silence and was staying at the Manikarnika Ghat. On their first meeting, the Swami placed his snuff box before the master for his use by way of giving a cordial reception to him. Examining his sense organs and limbs of the body, the master told Hriday that he, that is Trailanga Swami, bore the signs of a true Paramahamsa, and that he was, so to say, the living image of Shiva. The Swami had resolved to have a ghat built near Manikarnika. At the request of the master, Hriday helped that work forward by placing a few spadefuls of earth there. One day afterwards, the master invited the Swami, that is Trailanga Swami, and brought him to Mathur's residence and treated him to rice payasam with his own hand. The master stayed at Kashi for 5 or 6 days and then went to Prayag with Mathur. He bathed in the holy confluence and stayed there for 3 nights. Mathur and all others shaved their heads there according to the spiritual instruction, but the master did not do so, saying it is not necessary for me to do it. From Prayag, they returned to Kashi, where they stayed for a fortnight before proceeding to Vrindavan. Mathur stayed in a house near Nidhuvan at Vrindavan. He displayed his pomp and power there also, as in Kashi. He would go with his wife to visit temples where he offered a few gold coins as a token of respect while saluting the deities. Besides visiting Nidhuvan, the master paid visits to Radha Kunda, Shyam Kunda and the Govardhan hill, ascending to the peak of that hillock in an ecstatic mood. He heard of the eminent holy men of the place and paid visits to them. He was highly pleased to meet Ganga Mata at Nidhuvan. He indicated to Hriday the signs on her person and said that she had attained a very high state of spirituality. Having stayed at Vrindavan for about a fortnight, Mathur and others returned to Kashi. In order to see Vishwanath, the universal Lord, adorned in a special dress and ornaments. They stayed there till the middle of 1868. The master saw the golden image of Annapurna during this period. He met the Brahmani at Kashi. The master, Hriday said, met the Bhairavi Brahmani named Yogeshwari at Kashi. He went several times to her house in the quarter called the 64 Yoginis. The Brahmani was living there with a lady named Mokshada. The master was pleased to see the faith and devotion of the lady. The Brahmani accompanied the master to Vrindavan, where he asked her to live permanently. She passed away there shortly after the master returned from Vrindavan. During their stay at Vrindavan, the master had a desire to listen to the playing of the stringed instrument, Veena. The Veena is supposed to be the best stringed instrument in the whole world. In one of the Paris exhibitions of musical instruments, Veena got this encomium that it is the best stringed instrument in the world. But his desire was not fulfilled as no Veena player was available there at that time. That desire again arose in his mind when he returned to Kashi. Accompanied by Hriday, he went to the house of the expert Veena player Mahesh Chandra Sarkar, whom he requested to play on the Veena for him. Mahesh lived in the quarter called Madanpura in Kashi. At the request of the master, he played that day for a long time on that instrument with great delight. As soon as he heard the sweet ringing sound of the Veena, the master was in ecstasy. When he regained partial normal consciousness, he was heard to pray to the Divine Mother, saying, "Mother, give me normal consciousness. I want to listen attentively to the Veena." Immediately afterwards, he was able to stay in the external plane of consciousness when he listened to the music with delight and now and then sang to the accompaniment of the Veena. From 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., he spent his time delightfully there when he was requested by Mahesh to take a little refreshment, which he did and returned to Mathur. Mahesh used to come daily to the master thereafter. The master said he completely lost himself in playing on the Veena. Mathur expressed his desire to go to Gaya, the abode of Vishnu, but as the master had a strong objection He gave up the idea and came back to Calcutta. Master's objection was the Gaya Vishnu was the person who gave vision to his father before his birth. So Sri Ramakrishna is supposed to be an incarnation of the Vishnu of Gaya. Therefore Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if I go there, the point of my origin, I may lose myself in Samadhi and I will never come back. Therefore I don't want to go to Gaya. And he never went. After this pilgrimage to the principal places for about 4 months, the master, said Hriday, returned to Dakshineshwar in the middle of 1868. The master brought from Vrindavan some earth and dust of Radha Kunda and Shyam Kunda. When he came to Dakshineshwar, he scattered with the help of Hriday a little of earth and dust round Panchavati and dug in the remainder with his own hands in his sadhana cottage, in which he attained Samadhi, saying this spot becomes from today a holy place like Vrindavan. He requested Mathur shortly afterwards to invite Vaishnava teachers and devotees from various places. They came and the master celebrated a festival at the Panchavati. Mathur paid 16 rupees to each Vaishnava teacher and 1 rupee to each devotee at the time of farewell, thus showing his respect for them. It is usual when somebody returns from a big pilgrimage, a feast is given to many holy people. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna also followed. Many holy people were invited, and they were all given cash also, 16 rupees and 1 rupee like that. Hriday's wife died a short time after he had returned from the pilgrimage. On account of that event, Hriday's mind was filled with depression, with dispassion for some time. Hriday, we said before, was not a man of contemplative temperament. His ideal in life was to improve his worldly condition and spend his life enjoying the pleasures of the world as much as possible. Though other moods came on him from time to time, because of keeping the constant company of the master, they could not last long. He could not be contemplative in his mood because of the company, though he was in the company of Sri Ramakrishna, because that was not in his nature. Whenever there came an opportunity to satisfy the desire for enjoyment, he forgot everything else, pursued that thing long for, and until it was achieved, no other thought could enter his mind. Therefore, though all the master's sadhanas were performed during Hriday's stay at Dakshineshwar, the latter had little opportunity to see and understand them. So, however, Hriday truly loved his uncle and did not fail to render whatever service was necessary for him at any time. And as a result of it, he developed great courage, adroitness, and intelligence. The more the holy man came to and spoke of the superhuman nature of his uncle, and the more he observed the manifestation of divine powers in him as the result of his spiritual practices, the greater was his feeling of strength within himself, thanks to his nearness to his dear uncle. He thought that as his uncle was so much his own, and as he had become a favorite of his by his services to him, all the achievements in the spiritual world were already his too, in a way. Should he ever make an effort to have them, his uncle, by his divine powers, would enable him to attain them. He therefore did not feel that he was under any obligation to think of the next world. He would at first enjoy this world a little and apply his mind to the other afterwards, which most of the usual worldly people do like that. They say we should keep thinking about heaven and afterlife after we become 60 or 70. Until then we should not think about it. That's the general way of thinking, and Hriday was no exception to it. Grief-stricken at the death of his wife, Hriday now thought that the proper time for the latter, that is to think about heaven and afterlife, had arrived. He applied his mind more steadfastly than before to the worship of the Mother of the Universe, and used to put off his cloth and a sacred thread during the time of meditation, and importunately requested the Master to help him to have spiritual experiences similar to his own. Similar to his own means similar to Sri Ramakrishna. And why should he get Sri Ramakrishna's experiences? Because he is also throwing away his clothes, just Sri Ramakrishna. And he also meditating in the dead of night and in the jungles of Panchavati. Therefore, he should also get such experiences. That was his demand from Sri Ramakrishna. The Master assured him strongly that he had no need to do those things. For all the results would be his by just serving the Master, serving him. He told him that if both of them were filled with divine inspiration, day and night, and forgot everything concerning the body, such as eating, sleeping, etc., neither of them would look after the other. But Hriday did not give ear to those words. Master said, you have to look after me, and to an extent I also look after you. If we are in ecstasy always, both of us, how can it happen? So you will also suffer, I will also suffer. But Hriday would not hear his words. The Master at last had to yield and said, let Mother's will be done. Does anything happen by my will? It was Mother who turned my mind away from the world and brought about those conditions in me and made me have strange experiences. If Mother wills so, you will also have them. A few days after this talk, Hriday began to have, while worshipping, a few wonderful visions and states of divine ecstasy with partial unconsciousness. One day, Mathur Babu saw Hriday in that state and told to the Master, what is the state Hriday is in, Father? The Master explained it to him, saying, it is no sham with him. He importuned Mother for a little vision. That is why he is having it. Mother will bring him back to the normal condition after giving him a taste of it. Father, said Mathur, it is all your play. Only you have brought about this state on Hriday. So please calm him again. Both of us should be with you like Nandi and Bringi, the two eternal companions of Shiva, Nandi and Bringi, and serve you. Why should these abnormalities be with us? That means why should we go into ecstasy, etc.? We will be like your faithful servants. By serving yourself, whatever we have to get, we will get through your grace. Why should we be like these abnormal people going into ecstasy? Shortly after this conversation between the Master and Mathur, one night Hriday saw the Master going towards the Panchavati. Thinking that he might require his water pot and towel, he took them and followed him. As he was going, Hridaya had an extraordinary vision. He saw that the master was not a human being, that he was not composed of flesh and blood, and that the Panchavati was illumined by the light coming out of his body, and that while the master was walking, neither of his feet, which were also of light, did touch the ground, but carried him through the air. Because there is a mention in the epics, when the Devatas come to earth, they move about. But if you observe them, their feet will not touch the soil of the earth. They are always a few inches above the soil of the earth. Though they are moving about in the earth, in our company, if you observe them, their feet will not be touching the earth or the mud on the earth. So that is how Hridaya sees in his vision, Sri Ramakrishna's feet are not touching the earth, indicating that he is a divine being. Taking all this to be an optical illusion, Hridaya rubbed his eyes again and again, observed all the surrounding things to their natural state, and looked at the master once more, but to no purpose, although he saw all other things, trees, creepers, the Ganga, the hut, etc., to be what they were. He repeatedly saw the master in that luminous form. Extremely amazed at it, Hridaya asked himself whether there was any change in his mind which made him have that experience. Thinking thus, he looked at his own body and saw that he too was an effulgent being, made of light, an attendant companion of God himself, serving him eternally as a part, so to say, of his person, which was the light embodied. And now having a separate existence for the sole purpose of serving him. So he learnt about himself that he is also a divine person. When he had this experience and came to know the mystery of his own life, his heart was flooded with a strong current of bliss. He forgot himself, forgot the world, and forgot to consider whether the people of the world would speak well or ill of him. He was now in ecstasy with only partial normal consciousness and cried out repeatedly like one mad, "O Ramakrishna, O Ramakrishna, we are not mortal beings. Why are we here? Come, let us go from country to country and set souls free from bondage. I am also what you are." The master said to us, hear him crying like this, crying out like this. I said, stop, what's the matter with us that we are doing all this? People will run up here thinking some evil has befallen us. But did he give ear to it at all? I then came hurriedly to him, touched him on his heart and said, "Make the fellow dull and dumb again, O mother." Sri Ramakrishna had to request mother to make him silent again, take away all the ecstatic visions from him. Hridaya said to us that no sooner had the master said so than his bliss and vision vanished into the void, and he was his former dull self once again. Thus, fallen suddenly from that state of ecstasy, his mind was filled with dejection. "Uncle," sobbed out he, Why did you do this? Why did you say that I should become dull? I shall never again have such a blissful vision. Have I said, replied the master, that you should forever be dull? I said, be calm now. What a noise you made with such a small vision. That was why I had to say so. What a wealth of visions and experiences. I have all the 24 hours of the day. But do I make such noise? It is not a time for you to have such visions. Now be at rest. When it is time, you will have various visions and experiences. Although Hriday had to remain silent at the words of the master, he felt much wounded. Under the influence of egoism, he thought afterwards that he would try to have that vision again somehow. Reflecting thus, he increased the period of his japa and meditation and resolved that he should go at night to Panchavati and sitting under the tree where the master formerly used to sit for japa and meditation, call on the mother of the universe. Thinking so, once at dead of night, he left his bed, went to the Panchavati and sat down on the master's seat to meditate. The master too felt a desire to come to the Panchavati and started for it. Scarcely had he reached the place when he heard Hriday piteously calling out to him, "Save, uncle, save me, I am about to be burned to death." The master stepped forward quickly, came up to him and asked him, "What's the matter, Hriday?" Restless on account of pain, Hriday said, "Uncle, no sooner had I sat down here for meditation than someone threw, as it were, a plateful of live charcoal over my body. I am suffering from an unbearable burning pain." The master passed his hand over his body and said, "Don't be afraid. It is cool. Why do you do all this? Have I not told you to gain again and again that you will achieve everything by serving me?" Hriday used to say that all his pain was immediately removed by the touch of the master's hand. He never afterwards went again to the Panchavati to practice meditation, and a conviction grew in his mind that it would not be good for him to act contrary to his uncle's advice. So he learned that lesson, that he had to wait. He should not try to force the God to give him the visions. Hriday celebrated the autumn worship of Durga. Hriday, no doubt, got some sort of peace from the words of the master, but the daily duties of the temple now appeared distasteful to him. His mind was in search of some novel action from which he could derive some pleasure. Seeing the advent of the autumn of 1868, he resolved to perform the autumn worship of the mother in his house. That is Durga Puja, Sharadeya Puja, the worship of Durga during the autumn. So Ganga Narayan, his elder half brother, had then passed away, and Raghav, appointed to collect rent in the estate of Mathur Babu, was earning a decent welcome. With the change of time, when prosperity dawned, a new worship hall was built. Ganganarayan has expressed a wish that he should once bring the Divine Mother and worship her there. But he did not get an opportunity of fulfilling that wish. Hriday remembered that desire of his and tried to fulfill it. Knowing that Hriday, a man of action, might possibly get peace by celebrating the worship, the master agreed to it. While Mathur rendered pecuniary help to him. He helped him, no doubt, but he expressed great eagerness to have the master at his own residence during the worship. Wounded at heart on that account, Hriday made ready to go home alone to perform the worship. Seeing him thus, why are you pained in my subtle body? I shall daily go to see your worship. Nobody except you will see me. Have as the Tantradharak a Brahmin to dictate the mantras to you and perform the worship yourself according to your own devotion. Instead of keeping a complete fast at midday, drink milk, Ganga water and the syrup of candy. If you perform the worship in this way, the Mother of the Universe will certainly accept your worship. So, Sri Ramakrishna is instructing him how to worship. Hriday said that the Master gave him detailed instructions as to who should be ordered to take the image, to make the image, who should be appointed Tantradharaka, who will conduct the worship, guide the pujari or the priest to go through the worship, and how all other things should be done. He then started home with great delight to perform the worship. Hriday reached home and did everything according to the advice of the Master. He performed the rites pertaining to the 6th day, Shashti, Durga Shashti, of the bright fortnight, such as the awakening of the goddess, the preliminary consecration of the image, the invocation of the Devi, and engaged himself in the worship. After completing the worship enjoined for the 7th day, Hriday saw the Master in a luminous body standing in ecstasy beside the image during the adoration of the Devi with waving of lights. It was Aratrikam. When Aratrikam was performed to the Devi, Hriday sees Sri Ramakrishna is standing in his luminous form by the side of the Mother. Hriday said that he was filled with great zeal and ardor on having the divine vision of the Master near the image of that time every day, and also during the Sandhi Puja, the juncture worship. Hriday came back to Dakshineshwar shortly after the worship was finished and narrated to the Master everything concerning the worship. At the time of the Arati and juncture worship, said the Master to him, I felt indeed a great yearning to see your worship, and I went into ecstasy and felt that I went along a path of light and was present in your worship half in a luminous body. In your worship hall, in a luminous body. The last occasion of Hriday's worship. Hriday told us that once the Master, while in ecstasy, said to him, you will perform the yearly worship thrice. And it actually happened so. Disregarding the master's words, he was making preparations for the worship of the fourth time, when such a series of obstacles occurred that he had at last to give it up. Hriday married again shortly after the worship. After the worship of the first year, and applied his mind to the service of the master and to the worship of at the Dakshineshwar temple as before. So that with that one we come to the end of chapter 18. Now we go to the chapter 19, the death of the master's relations. We have already acquainted the reader a little with Akshay, the son of the master's eldest brother, Ram Kumar. Akshay came to Dakshineshwar and was appointed priest in the Vishnu temple in 1865. A short time after the revered Totapuri came there. Akshay was then about 17 years old. It is necessary to say a few words about him here. As his mother had died at the time of his death, he became an object of special love to all his relatives. He was only 3 or 4 years old when the master came for the first time to Calcutta in 1852. The master therefore had the occasion to take Akshay on his lap and bring him up with loving care for 2 or 3 years before he came to Calcutta. But his father Ram Kumar never in his life took him on his lap, took his own son. He never on his lap he took him. Why? When asked the reason for it, he would say, "It will be love lost. The child will not live long." While afterwards the master forgot himself, the world, and engaged himself in spiritual practices, the beautiful child had been passing through the tender years and he was now about to enter his youth. Naturally, he looked more beautiful than ever. The beauty of Akshay. We were told by the master and his relatives that Akshay was indeed a beautiful person. They said that his complexion was as bright as his features were graceful and handsome. He looked like a living form of Shiva. Akshay's mind was very much devoted from his childhood to Sri Ramachandra. He spent a long time daily in the service of Raghuvir. Raghuvir is the family deity. It is Sri Ramachandra, his family deity. Therefore, when he took charge of the worship of the Dakshineshwar temple, he was appointed to do a duty which was quite to his liking. He was given the Radhakanta temple, so he liked it. The master said, while he was performing the worship of Radha Govinda, he became so much absorbed in meditation that he had no idea of the crowds of people coming and going out of the temple and would not regain his normal consciousness before the lapse of a couple of hours. So this young man of 17 years, without much of spiritual instruction from others, by himself he would lose himself for a couple of hours in meditation. Having finished the daily worship at the temple, he would go, we have been told by Hriday, to the Panchavati and spent a long time in worshipping Shiva there. Here in the main temple he was worshipping Radha Kanta, Radha Krishna. And afterwards he has a desire to worship Shiva also. So he would go on worshipping Shiva at the Panchavati. He would then cook his food with his own hands, and after taking his meal, apply his mind to the study of the Bhagavata. See the wonderful routine of a pujari, a priest in a temple. His mind was always on God. Here he was not married, luckily. Therefore he had all the time. He would either go and worship some other deity other than the main deity in the temple. Sometime he would spend it reading Bhagavata, scriptures, spiritual scriptures. So always his mind is on God. Though he is supposed to be only an employee working in the temple as a pujari or a priest, but his whole life was full of God consciousness. So Akshay was like that. Then besides, by a new urge for the love of God, he practiced so much of nyasa and pranayama that his throat and palate bled and swelled now and then. Is it any wonder, therefore, that such love and devotion on his part to God endeared him to the Master? Master, as it is, would love anybody who did give some time for prayer, meditation and other spiritual practices. And this young man was devoting so much of time for meditation, japam, reading scriptures and worshipping in the temple. So naturally, Sri Ramakrishna was very much impressed by Akshay's performance. Years passed one after another till it was the end of Bengali year 1275, equivalent to AD 1869. Akshay's uncle Rameshwar came to know of his trend of mind and began to search for a bride. They wanted to marry him off so that his ecstasies would come down because of the worries of the family and family life. It was in the month of Chaitra that a suitable bride was found in the village of Kuchakol, not far from Kamarpukur, and Rameshwar came to Dakshineshwar to take Akshay home. Objections were raised against their starting on the ground that month of Chaitra was held inauspicious for starting on a journey. Rameshwar and Akshay did not pay any heed to it and said that the prohibition of the scriptures was not applicable in the case of homecoming from a temporary residence in that temple away from the home. Akshay's marriage took place shortly after he returned home in the month of Vaishak, that is in AD 1869. Though they had said there will be no after effects for this going at a wrong time, we see that some misfortune follows them. In our next reading, we will read that. Today, we shall close here itself. Niranjanam nityamanantarupam bhaktanukampadhrita vigraham vai Ishavataram parameshamidhyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namama. O Ramakrishna, the taintless one, the eternal one, the one with infinite forms, the one who has assumed form for the sake of devotees, the one who is the incarnate of the Supreme Soul, and the one who is the adorable Lord of all, we salute Thee, bowing our heads before You. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.